All right, I would like to invite the High School of Zosimea to give their presentation and to also thank their teachers and everyone that worked in the project. I'd like to thank you a lot, and I heard you guys prepared something very nice, so I'm excited to see what that's about. And we also have a guest here today, Mr. Isaac, who also helped with a video that we're going to see. And no, okay, yes, okay. So, Zosimea.
Table of contents. A small sign, part 1. For my Jewish classmates at Zosimea School. Part 2. Zosimea School. Before World War II, Jewish students studied at Zosimea. Part 3. Joseph Elia. A few comments about the famous poet. Part 4. Jews in Europe. The Jewish society in Europe before 1933. Part 5. Jews in Greece. The Jewish society in Ioannina and in Greece. Part 6. Isaac Dostus, information and interview with Isaac Dostus.
There was a small sign, simple, clear. It reminded us of votive inscriptions on tombstones, the one we studied in reference books in our history class. To my Jewish classmates at Zosimea School, next to an incredibly lifelike waxwork, depiction of the Auschwitz ovens. I don't know what attracted us more. Perhaps it was the name of our school, which once again appeared in a report of a historical event that was indeed as tragic as the Holocaust.
It may have been the automatic realization that in Ioannina before World War II, Jewish students studied at Zosimea School. This rests as further proof that the Romanian Jewish community of the city coexisted harmoniously with the Christian community and interacted in public spaces, something that had previously been sporadically mentioned in class.
But is it certain that it was spontaneous? That was the next moment when my friends and I decided to investigate the matter more. In Ioannina, at the beginning of the 20th century, many schools of all levels were registered. It is no coincidence that the city is often referred to as the city of arts and letters.
In secondary education, Zosimea School, having been founded in 1828, gathered the city's cream of the crop of students. However, the Alliance Israélite Universelle School, a Friends school aiming also at receiving Jewish students of the city, operated during the same period. There is also a primary school was operated in the Jewish district. And what was happening regarding girls' education? For assistance in our research, we turn to Sami Fracheri.
The city did not discriminate in terms of their religious background, neither of its students nor of its teachers. Many Christian teachers worked in the Jewish schools. After all, the Alliance came under the control of the Greek state in 1928. Joseph Elia, an important Romanian Jewish poet, was a professor at the Alliance School for a short time. After a lecture in Zosimea on December 1927, he was fired from his job because of his progressive socialist beliefs that advocated the removal of discrimination and stereotyping. But who was Joseph Elia, and how does he express this coexistence of the two elements?
As he was described by a local newspaper, Epirus, he wasn't worshipping Java, God. Elia believed in blonde Apollo. Young like him, seeing the injustice of the state system, maybe from being tied up to his racist bonds, he became a social rebel. He threw away any artistic or religious value from his internal world. He thought that everything, even art itself, are born and set only by an aesthetic domain of life, the economic one. So he fought and sang for years in his era of restless youth. He is the most beautiful Greek-Jewish spirit that connects the old poetic history and the new one of these two nations. A biblical soul with poetic perfumes of Jerusalem and Bethlehem, with the vibes of Epirus and his love for Greece.
Before the Nazis seized power in 1933, Europe had a richly diverse set of Jewish dynamic and highly developed cultures. They drew their identity from hundreds or more years of Jewish presence. The American Jewish Yearbook placed the total Jewish population of Europe at about 9.5 million, comprising 1.7% of the total European population in 1933, which represented more than 60% of the world Jewish population and estimated at 15.3 million. In southern Europe, Greece had the largest Jewish population, with about 73,000 Jews, 1.2% of the total Greek population.
Although there was a spirit against Jews in the society, Metaxas's military government, 1936 to 1941, did not follow a policy against them. There was no law in order to isolate Jewish citizens, maybe because of financial profits estimated. According to trial records, the Jews of Ioannina were involved mainly in financial or trade cases.
Unfortunately, there were pogroms against Jews in Corfu, 1891. Chios, 1892, and Thessaloniki, 1931, 1 year after the Protocols of Sion were published in Greek language, with Greek refugees from Asia Minor to be on the lead. After the last one, 10,000 Jews from Thessaloniki decided to move to Palestine.
In Europe, Greece has the earliest Jewish presence. There has been a Jewish population since at least the 4th century BCE, and maybe even since the 6th. In fact, archaeologists have discovered the ruins of Greek Jewish synagogues from the 2nd century BCE. Despite their long history in the country, however, Greek Jews have struggled for inclusion. By the time Saul of Tarsus, Christian St. Paul, visited Greece in the 1st century, there were thriving Jewish communities in several Greek cities, including Thessaloniki, Veria, Athens, and Corinth. Those early Jewish communities formed a unique culture called Romaniotes. Throughout the Byzantine period in Greece, Romaniote Jews sought to balance their Greek identities with Jewish practices. In the struggle for integration and acceptance, Jews often faced discrimination based on their religious beliefs.
In published works of the great Greek novel writers Alexandros Papadiamantis, 1851-1911, and George Ioannou, 1927-1985, Jewish heroes are referred, reflecting the Greek society's attitudes and feelings towards them. Two incidents of great importance for Jews in Greece are mentioned in detail: the pogrom of Corfu, 1891, by Papadiamantis, and the roundup of Jews in Thessaloniki, 1942, by Ioannou. In Papadiamantis' novel, Jews are mentioned rarely, in a negative way, and their actions follow the stereotypes of the sly merchant, the wandering Jew, the skimpy, the guilty for Christ's crucifixion, and his hazard. It is stated that Jewish or Turkish or Armenian women execute magic. In Ioannou's novel, Jewish people are combined with stereotypes of the negative hero, bearing accusations like the ones mentioned already. The Jewish men are presented as lepers, dirty, and magicians, while women are witches or child murderers. The above declare how important it is, through the years, for society to be healed from negative stereotypes and to show respect for diversity in general.
The drama play Fear and Misery of Third Reich is consisted of 24 scenes. It was written while Brecht was in exile, 1935 to 1939, at a time when the horror of Nazi government was not yet revealed publicly. It is described how the Nazis were fighting the internal enemy, Jewish people and workers, before they fought the external ones. One of the scenes is about a Jewish wife who is forced by the circumstances to leave her husband and her homeland. A small example of a video about the Jewish wife by Brecht.
I'm leaving because otherwise they're going to take away your position as a chief surgeon, Fritz. Because they have already stopped talking to you at the clinic, and because you can't sleep nights. I don't want you to tell me not to go, Fritz. I'm in a hurry, Fritz, because, see, I don't want to be here when you're ready to tell me to get out. Time, see. And character is a question of time. You know? It's like a glove, no? I mean, there are good ones and they last for a long time, but they don't last forever. see, I'm not angry, and yet I am. So why should I always be so understanding what's wrong with the shape of my nose or the color of my hair? Oh, let's face it, Fritz. I have to leave the town where I was born. Otherwise, they have to give me butter. What kind of men are you all? Yes, you too. Discover the quantum theory, and then you let yourself be bossed by half savages. You want to conquer the world. And then you're not allowed to keep the wife that you want. The monsters, the bootleggers, the monsters. There you sit, watching your wife pack, and you don't say anything. The walls, they have ears, don't they? So you don't say anything! No, no! One not listens, and the other keeps their mouth shut. God damn it. I should keep my mouth shut 2 years. If I loved you, I should shut up now.
And we can continue on with the presentation.
The Balkan Wars, 1912-1913, revealed dangers concerning nations, countries, and minorities. After the end of World War I, 1914-1918, and the sudden collapse of the old empires, the matter of minorities came for the first time on the scene. Jewish groups played a significant role on the early stages of the development of the theory of minorities' rights. Some thoughts for solving this problem were through immigration to its minorities nation's country. But those thoughts could not concern Jews and Roma, who did not have a country of their own at the time. The newborn Society of Nations helped the creation of laws which protected minorities' rights in some countries, including Greece. But assimilation of minorities seemed to be the preferred solution.
In addition, the vast numbers of immigrants because of World War I did not have any more the opportunity to migrate to the US after 1921. Nation countries were making laws that increased the number of people without country and could not or did not want to return to their homeland. Between the two world wars, there was a moment when 800,000 people in Europe were unprotected by any law organization accepted by the international human rights law. The economic depression made things even worse.
The Romanov Jewish communities in Greece were decreased in number after Sephardic Jews came to Greece after 1492 and kept closer to tradition in comparison to the rest. This community appears at least since the 9th century AD. During the end of the 19th century, the Jewish community of Ioannina had 4,000 members, but after the World War I, its members were only 2,000. Contrary to the Sephardic Jews, Romanovs used in their everyday life, even in religious ceremonies, the Greek language mixed with their own. Songs that were brought to light confirm all the above.
In our research, we sought out information from the author of Ioannina Mai Ioanna, Isaac Dostus. But who is Isaac Dostus? Isaac Dostus is a writer and filmmaker with a special focus on the Shoah, Holocaust in Greece. Isaac Dostus, along with his beloved wife, Diana Dostus, has co-authored 3 books: 10 Gold Medals, Glory of Freedom in 2014, Greek Salad, also in 2014, and Ioannina Mai Ioannina in 2015. They are also co-recipients of the Raoul Wallenberg Award and the Axelrod Award for Holocaust Educators, sponsored by New Jersey State Department of Education's Commission on Holocaust Education. Now, some students that interviewed Mr. Dostus would like to say a few words.
So basically, it's been 3 weeks since we had this interview with Mr. Isaac Dostus. It was a great experience for the 3 of us. It was really interesting, and we consider ourselves the luckiest students, maybe, that this opportunity was given to us.
So at first we sat at a local coffee shop located at the exact same space where the roundup of the Jews occurred in 1944. We shot the video on our smartphones, and then we edited the final product and tried to keep the most important information from what we talked about.
So, Nikos, Maria and I, Rafael, we had a conversation with Mr. Isaac, along with 3 of our teachers. We started off by asking him some historical questions about Romagnotes Jews in Ioannina. We talked about the discrimination that they faced during the wars and in the interwar. We discussed the topic of discrimination, racism, diversity in general, and it was a very productive conversation.
So now we're going to continue with the video.
When questions start, that's when the interest opens up. Before we go further, do you guys realize that you are sitting in a very historical area right now? Because this is where the roundup of the Jews occurred. Right where you're sitting right now, right in this island here, is where the Jews were taken from. And so not many people know it when they sit here. Even, when foreigners come and they sit here knowing, oh, what a beautiful place. But this is where all of that happened how many years ago? 1944. So that's the story about this area here. Some of the buildings are still here. If you walk past here, some of those buildings where the Nazi motorcycle was sitting, that building is still here. So we still have that history, but it's not the best of history. For the Holocaust itself, instead of dealing with, oh my God, how bad this was, and truly it was, we talked about the Greeks who helped, who supported, not only Greeks, but around Europe. Who were the people who stood up to make a difference? Because those are the people we need to study. So when you study all of the atrocities, what do we get? We get, oh my God, what can I do? I'm a small person. But when you think about, he made a difference. You know what? I can do something the same way. Ioannina is a very conservative area.
That's true.
Right here, in this building here, we wanted to put up a sign. If they allow it, put it up. Okay, so we put it up. Put it up. Now, this guy gets problems from the newspapers. Why are you pro-Jewish? Why are you putting this up over here? It didn't say anything except that this was where the Jews were rounded up. Well, the guy finally took it down. And I was told never to start what we call a ruckus. What do you call a ruckus? Trouble. Never start this trouble again. I said, okay. So, anyway, now we go back to 1913. You can see if we're conservative now, you can imagine how much power the religion had at that time, because there was no balance at all. It was mostly religious. Here in all of Greece, the most powerful element of the country. And so when the conservative Jews, which most of them were under Turkey or the Ottoman Empire, they felt pretty comfortable. The Ottoman Empire made some rules that were good for Jewish businesses, Jewish professions. Now, all of a sudden, the Greeks have taken back part of Greece. That was Greece before. Now, these conservative Jews, what are we going to do? The government wasn't as supportive as the Ottoman Empire was. What are we going to do? So it took a while to change over into the Greek government. One of the things the Greek government did at that time, which wasn't easy for the conservative Jews, is that if you don't know this yet, most of you do already, Saturday is the day of, where Jews go to synagogue, and, the religion is on Saturday. And for Christians, Greek Orthodox, it's on Sunday. So, the Jews who were used to closing on Saturdays under the Ottoman Empire, and opening on Sundays, because in Muslim, Friday there was no problem with opening on Sunday. Here, the government said you can't do that. You can't open on Sundays here in Yanina. And you need to close on Saturdays, or you're going to stay open. Well, the religious Jews, Saturday is the highest day of religion for the Jews. Saturday, the Sabbath. There was no way but for them to close then on both days. And so that also commercially was not easy for the Jews.
So before 1930, a lot of families left the city. Why did that happen? I mean, before 1940, when the German occupation started.
Yeah. I don't know. No, I do know. I'm sorry.
That's why I'm asking.
Okay. First of all, my family moved from Greece because of the economics in 1914. Don't shake your head yet, because you don't know what I'm going to say here. It's not the 1940. My father and his family went to America in 1915. Two things. One was the economics here there was nothing. Nothing was going on. So the family went, and the other part was that the boys were of the age of war. They could be inducted into the army. And so I guess the family didn't want that, so they moved to America. Those are the two questions there. The other part is not all of my family went to America. My father's family, Dostus, that's Dostis, that family went to America. The other part, my mother's other part, Cohen, went to Israel. So I have a split personality with the idea of half of my family is in Israel, half of my family in America. The Israeli group that went before, that would be about 1930, 1935, that they went to Israel. And some just didn't make it. We lost 52 of my family on either side were lost to the Holocaust. Not only from here in Yanina, but also from Athens, Preveza, Arta, and a few other places that I'm not remembering from the moment. But they were, the family was spread out into various parts of Greece. And so, of the 52, I don't really focus too much on those, because I focus on the 16 that were saved by Greeks. And if it weren't for those Greeks, I would have never met my family.
So, what changed in the economical part of Greece after the Greek takeover in 1913?
So, around 1913, there were two wars. It was like the pre-World War I wars. So, the Balkans, Greece, Bulgaria, Serbia, there was one more, Romania. Yes, tell me again. Montenegro. So all of these nations were fighting for a place to take over, right? Take over. So that's what they did. So in one war, it moved one way. Then all of a sudden, those allies became enemies. And so now the second part happened. And then came the First World War with Turkey.
The fact that your parents were Romagnotes affected you in your life, basically at home, like customs, habits, like the positive and the negative differences about it.
Okay, there were differences. I didn't know if it was positive or negative because there were differences. So, and then small ways, the way my father read the Hebrew texts, I didn't know till later that we were different. See, so it wasn't like as a child I knew all of this. Even for the Holocaust. Wait, before I get to that. So there were small things, like very small things. Mom, why do we eat rice at this time of year and those Jewish people over there eat potatoes? How come? My mother didn't actually know. It was just a custom. It was the same for us. Why did we light the candles this way when I know Joseph over there lights his candles a different way? Why are those candles in the window? And Mom, you never put the candles in the window. How come? So there were things that I didn't understand, and it didn't really matter because I was different anyway, so it didn't matter that it was this way or not. But as to the Holocaust, we didn't know. See, my mother had 2 photographs on the bureau of her family. And when I asked them what happened to her, they both died in the war. And that's what she said. Pethanan sto polimo. Okay. I didn't know till later that they were taken from Kerkera?
Corfu.
Corfu. That's right. Kerkera is Corfu. Right, I got it. They were taken from Kerkera as part of the roundup. But I only found that out later when I was doing my own research, as you might be doing. And that's so when you ask me about the differences, negative or positive, there were none. I only knew it as it was, and only later did I find out, oh my gosh, I'm Romagnote.
Schools were back then like Jewish schools in Ioannina, and how were they like?
Well, part of one, there were 4. There were 4 in different grades. There were 4 schools. At that time, the girls were separated from the boys. In the book, it tells you where the girls' school was before they combined it together with the boys. And then we had the first school, the youngest school, which was on Yosef Eliyahu Street, on our street. And the second school was there too. So there were 4 schools. As to what they... Now this was interesting because those schools were... This is for you. Those schools were integrated. Meaning mixed. Not only for Jews, meaning girls and boys, but for anyone else who wanted to go to school. So they had Muslims, they had Greeks. It didn't matter, it seemed. The school came from the Alliance, which was begun in France, and French was the most important language outside of Greek at that time. Now it's English. At that time, so the Alliance from France, started by a Jewish person, went throughout Greece. There was about 6 or 7 schools. Thessaloniki, is that where you're going? No, okay. But Thessaloniki had a Jewish school in Alliance. We had, Preveza had one. Athens, of course, had one. So they went throughout. What did they teach the boys as opposed to the girls? Well, the boys were taught professions, what they could do as a profession. For the girls was for what could do at home, economics at home, the shopping, the foods, the cooking, etc. And so that was the difference there. The girls were not allowed to go beyond the 6th grade. The boys went through high school. So you would have been lucky, you guys. So that's the difference in what they did. And they helped the boys get jobs in their professions. For the women, they told you go home. Go home. In the U.S., when I was a child, there was no difference between, like, African Americans, which we had plenty of, Jews, Muslims. My friends were all, everywhere, anywhere. So there was no real, I couldn't tell you the differences because I wasn't involved. In my childhood, my closest friends were, one was a Jewish person from Russia, the boys, the children. One was a Polish person. One was an African American person. Oh, and then there was me. Okay, so the four of us. They were the Four Musketeers. Do you know that story? Okay, good. Okay. So I don't have to explain that. That's good. Okay. So we there was no problem. Puerto Ricans was the other one. We had a lot of Puerto Rican in our area. In fact, when I did theater, local theater at the Henry Street Playhouse, there were a lot of Puerto Ricans in the cast as part of Friends. So I cannot answer that, but I can answer the other side. For my family living here, for the letters we received, and I remember making these packages, my mother and father would buy things that the family here would ask for. I'm sorry, the one I think of is, I need girdles. You guys, you don't, but you don't wear girdles anymore. And those girdles, what do you call it? What is that?
Thing so that you wear.
Zoni ni epupano, olo. Oh, you got me? You got it's over here. All over here.
Please show.
I'm doing. It's put this. You got to get the stomach in. Okay.
I need one.
You need one. I'll get my family to send you one.
Okay. How do you say it?
Girdle.
Girdle.
Yeah.
Girdle.
Girdle.
Girdles.
Not girdle, just girdle. Okay. Girdle. So I'm sorry, I'm still on to it. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So I remember my family buying. Oh, hi.
No, don't worry.
Didn't worry? Okay, I won't. They bought girdles and underwear and pants and socks, and they had to take off all the labels because we could not send any new clothes here. And so we would, rough them up, etc. Why? Because in the 1930s
Jewish.
Well, not only Jewish, there was nothing here. In the 1930s and early 40s, before the war came here, they didn't have. It's not even after the war that this happened. It was, that's right. Economics here were bad even before the war because of the wars from 1913, 1914. It didn't change much between the end of World War I, 1918, through 1930. There wasn't much change. And so, I remember the cards we had to make up to tie the packages with this rope. And then I was the one who ended up writing all the things that were in the box because that's the only way it would get through customs. So that's what I remember. So I understood from childhood that this was not a country that was any equal to America. In values, in dollars and cents. I wasn't standing up for the religion.
Okay.
I was standing up for the discrimination.
For the people.
For the people.
Okay.
Anyways, so when I see something like that, it makes me want to do more. To end, and I can't, but to end the discrimination, wherever it is. It's not like it's just because it's Jewish. So if you were discriminated in another place and you told us about it, I'd probably try to do something for that.
Did you feel like it was your calling to fight against the discrimination?
Any discrimination. Yeah.
Any discrimination.
Well, okay, so I'm going to go back to something else.
Okay.
Diana and I started a program in America. We're teachers and actors and filmmakers. Sorry. And we started a program. So I'm going to make you as an example, right where you sit. So as actors, okay, Diana and I are playing other roles. You know, I'm playing one role, Diana plays the Queen of Spain, she did a role, and the King is right there, Excellency. So now, when you're playing another role, you need to do the research, whatever that might be. You need to understand what the person's thoughts are as that character. They may not be yours.
So you can embrace it.
So you can embrace it. Not only mentally and emotionally, but physically too. So, we started a program for children. And the basis of it is, if you can become the actor, the other character in the play that you want to become, why can't you use those same techniques to become the best person you can be? The conservatism of the society strangles you, cuts you off. And until you understand that and change it and break the bonds, break the chains. Thank you. See, she's good. She knows. Break the chains. You are stuck with who you are, whether you want to be or not. Society overwhelms us, whether it's conservative or not.
So that was that. The presentation, if we could have it for a bit more. One last thing, yes. So these are the people who worked on the project, the interviewers, and the presentation. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Zosimea. That was a very informative presentation, and it's a really promising sight to see young kids cooperating with the teachers to make an analysis like this, to do research. It's a really promising sight. So thank you. And now we would like to invite the middle school of Slodonea for their presentation.
Welcome. My name is Alexander Londoridis. It's an honor of mine being here representing the Donek Pedefteria. For this project, a lot of people worked. Unfortunately, most of them couldn't make it here, but let's begin. So, we're involved in several actions, like meeting with Mr. Pericles Ritas. He's a member of the Israeli community of Ioanna. We also met with Mrs. Allegro Matza. This interview was very informative. She is the General Secretary of the Israeli community of Ioanna. We also visited the Jewish synagogue of Ioanna and interviewed with the mayor of Ioanna city. We also met with other students a lot of times outside school hours. We also saw the film Mephisto, which is a co-production of Hungary, Western Germany and Austria, produced in 1981, directed by Istvan Sabzo. This project was made both by individual people and by two-person cooperating in team projects. Moreover, we saw an award documentary called Romagnotes, the Greek Jews of Ioanna. We also attended the theater play entitled The Jews of Ioanna. Origin and the first traces of Romagnotes in Ioanna. The first historic evidence about the Jewish community of Ioanna appears in 319 in an order of the Emperor Andronicus II. During the 16th century, many historical sources mention the Romagnotes Jews as traders whose trade was directed not only to the Greek towns and villages, but also to the Adriatic coast and Venice. By the centuries, the Jewish community had a surprising increase, and in fact, during the 18th century and the Ali Pasha era, became a flourishing community. At that time, it was organized in 3 big quarters, inside and around the fortress of Ioanna, and finally reach a population of about 4,000 people. Relations between Christians and Jews of the town. The Jewish population resided in a specific quarter, not ghettoized but gathered, interacting strongly with all different religious communities in the city. In addition to their distinct religious habits, Jews lived integrated into society, trying to be fully assimilated. There were trade and relations between Jews and Christians. There was a peaceful coexistence between all the citizens. However, in 1930, an anti-Semitic organization named National Union of Greece was created, but its action wasn't something important. Ioanna, a multicultural society. A Jewish community of Greek culture in the city of Ioanna have different customs and traditions, some Sephardic and Ashkenazi, which lived in Thessaloniki. In Ioanna, there is a large community strongly tied with the society of Ioanna, which interacted with the Christians and Muslims for many centuries. This is a point that makes a specific Jewish community stand out from other Jewish communities. And except for some conservative minds and behaviors, the Romagnotes remained an integral part of the multicultural mosaic of the city of Ioanna. The Jewish community of Ioanna preserved its identity through various dangers and risks. However, during World War II, the Nazi occupation changed the situation. During the Holocaust, the vast majority of Ioanna's Jews was exterminated, and only a low percentage of the Jewish citizens, about 9% of Romagnotes, survived the occupation, during which Nazis captured entire Jewish communities and forced them on trains by which they were transported to concentration camps. The following table shows more details on the above mentioned. On Epirus there are three major towns, Ioanna, Preveza, and Arta. Before persecution in Ioanna, there were about 1,850 Jewish people, in Preveza 250, and in Arta 324. After persecution, there were 163 in Ioanna, in Preveza just 15, and in Arta 60. That's reduced by 91% in Ioanna, 94% in Preveza, and 84% in Arta. Future. Considering the past, and especially the case of 30s and 40s, we reach the conclusion that all of us need to care and to be on alert for peace, as it is not something unconditionally given. Many times, diversity causes discrimination and hostility between people, which frequently lead to discrimination policies and strategies. It is not difficult for some parts of the society or even governments, driven by their excessive need to power or by racist attitudes, to target a specific person or a whole community. The past shows that the result of a behavior like this can be devastating. Diversity is richness. Modern societies are multicultural, as they consist of many nationalities with different habits, cultures, values, and ideas. The key for a sustainable society where people coexist is equality in any level, tolerance, solidarity, mutual support, and empathy. Each of us needs to struggle in order to raise awareness on matters of racism, bigotry, illiberality, and any prejudice against race, religion, color, origin, etc. It is essential to understand that diversity can only be beneficial for every part of the society, so for every individual of us, whole of people, because the interaction of various ideas and mentalities can build strong humanistic societies. Different nationalities, different races, different kinds of people in general make Europe so unique. It's up to us to fight for a society free of discriminations. So, if there is something you have to remember from today's presentation, is that by being united, we are stronger. By being different, we are unique. Thanks for your attention. A little presentation. Can you have? These are every student that contributed on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Lovane, for your presentation. That was very informative. So thank you for that. Are there any questions on what we saw today? Anything? No? Okay, so we're gonna wrap this up. We're gonna have a coffee break now, and we have another screening afterwards. Yes, a documentary called Romagnotus. It's about the Jews of Yanina that we saw today. Thank you.